There are a lot of ways to approach looking at the history of films. Its look has gone through a lot of changes over the years, giving many approaches for how to organize it. There's the aesthetic approach, looking at, quote, movies and directors using criteria that assess their artistic significance and influence. And then there's a technological approach, an economic approach, looking at the business side of film, and there's a social, political side of film history as a product of their times and their point in history. The Artist is a film that touches on the historical period of films when silent films were becoming a thing of the past, after the jazz singer and other talkies were coming into the limelight. Many silent film actors, as seen in The Artist, lost their jobs. Many actors struggled to transition from silent films to talkies. Many of those actors that were immigrants struggled because they could not dictate dialogue clearly enough. And other actors just struggled to memorize lines. Raoul Walsh talked about the struggle of many actors and talked about how one of the actors who had a hard time was Wally Beery. He would get the dialogue all backwards, so he just started ad-libbing. Some of what he said turned out good, but some of it had to be cut out. Unquote. It was a time of transition, and many actors didn't know how to make it in the business after talkies took over. Wally Beery, while struggling at first, found his footing later on in his career. George Valentine is a perfect example of how talkies were such a struggle for silent film actors to transition to, and The Artist does a great job of portraying such difficulties and how the film industry was forever changed. The Artist also does a great job of giving little references to films throughout the history of filmmaking, and one that stood out to me was the scene between George Valentine and his wife. It's a terrific montage, and it reminded me a lot of the montage of Citizen Kane. It was multiple shots of them at the dinner table and showing the growing distance apart from one another. They also show the rise of Pepe Miller and the steady decline of Valentine in these shots. The director of The Artist, Michael H., said, quote, well, the point wasn't to make an homage for its own purpose. I love Citizen Kane, but referring to that wasn't the point. I studied a lot of films, silents, and classics, and I did make references. But I didn't want to show off what I know because it takes away from my story. I wanted to show how one couple's relationship was failing, and I had to do it quickly. The Artist's story and its wonderful characters give a nice historical look with dramatic effect and also shows its love for film.